I really don't know if I should be surprised anymore, but the Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation, literally a standing ovation for a Nazi. Not a neo-Nazi, no, a Ukrainian Nazi. Just look at this. This is the Speaker of the House.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians.
Whoa, stop. Anytime you're talking about the Second World War and you say someone fought against the Russians, you should immediately have alarm bells ringing in your head. What do you mean he fought against the Russians in World War II? You mean he's a fucking Nazi? Yes, that's exactly what it means.
And continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
He's like, oh, wait till they find out. Wow.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing Temiskaming.
Oh.
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
No, you, the hell you don't. Jesus Christ, do you even... I feel like I should stop the whole segment right now. Like, what could I possibly say that needs to be said to break this down? Is this not? This is self-evident, the whole situation. No, but we have to keep going because this is outrageous. So this guy that they just applauded, the Nazi, the Ukrainian Nazi, not neo-Nazi, an actual Nazi, a Nazi. These are photos of him in World War II in the SS Galicia division. So this is the 14th division of the Waffen SS. So the Waffen SS, basically, so SS is a Schutzstaffel created by Heinrich Himmler and originally meant to supposed to be a bodyguard unit for Hitler. And then they expand the role of it with the Waffen SS to do stuff like, just genocide or guarding concentration camps, Einsatzgruppen, going in and executing entire villages, just normal Nazi things. So these are photos of this scumbag that the Canadian Parliament just gave a standing ovation to, that they just called a hero, a Canadian and Ukrainian hero. Look at them. This is, in uniform. Jesus Christ. Once again, do I need to explain this anymore? Turns out this is, when Putin said that the West are supporting Nazis in Ukraine, I think this is what he meant. And this is why you make the distinction that we're not talking about, neo-Nazis, which would be bad enough. No, just, actual Nazis like Banderites. So people who are adherents of Stepan Bandera, who is also in Ukraine looked at as a hero, right? Who is also called a hero of Ukraine. They idolize these people. And this was common knowledge, this was public knowledge in the mainstream media up until the war in Ukraine started, right? Or rather exploded in 2022. But for the last decade, you can go at BBC or NBC, pick whatever channel you like, and they probably have articles. They most definitely have articles and reports about how Ukraine is packed with Nazis. Not neo-Nazis, Nazis. We're not talking about like skinhead hooligans or something. No, the Banderites. And even in Canada, they had a monument to this guy's division, right? Look at this. This is from CBC, okay? So this is from 2021. This is before the war starts or rather explodes, right? The headline says, Jewish groups call for removal of vandalized Ukrainian World War II memorial. So they have this thing erected for the 14th Waffen SS division in St. Michael's Cemetery. And you have the Wiesenthal Center, right, asking them to tear it down. So you can see that this is a problem that predates the war. But of course, right now, what does Trudeau do after this episode? Well, he lets the Speaker of the House take the fall. After all, he is the one who ushered in the applause. But he also acts like, well, don't talk about this because it's an advantage that you give to Russia. You're advancing Russian propaganda by talking about this, by speaking about this. That's the takeaway from all this. Not that, oh, this is horrific, that we actually applauded a Nazi, that we are, on top of that, supporting Nazis in Ukraine. No. It's not that. It's, oh, stop talking about this because now you're going to be doing Russian propaganda. Dude, it's not propaganda if it's true. What propaganda? You just basically confirm that what the Russians are saying is true and not propaganda. That's the takeaway from this. And you should be goddamn ashamed. I would resign. I would just bury my head in another galaxy if this shit happened. How disgusting. Because make no mistake, they apologize now. The Speaker of the House apologizes for this, but this is not the biggest problem. The problem is that they're arming you Nazis right now in Ukraine. Ones that are not 98 years old, but my age or your age, that are fighting age. They're giving them M1A2 Abrams, well, M1A1 variants. They're giving them Challenger tanks. They're giving them Bradleys. They're teaching them how to make bombs. They're clandestine bomb-making classes that were filmed on CNN that I showed to you. That is the big problem. That's the takeaway from this. It's not that you applauded a Nazi in the parliament. It's that you're applauding a Nazi in the parliament and you're arming Nazis in Ukraine. Just like this fuck. Here's Trudeau. Look at him try to wiggle his way out like some worm.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue
Dude,
our
what disinformation? Did you not applaud a Nazi? Are you not arming Nazis in Ukraine? How is this propaganda if it's demonstrably true, if you can verify it? It's not propaganda just because you want it to be.
Continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
So the Speaker of the House, not me, the Prime Minister, who leads the country. The Speaker of the House has recognized his mistake. I played no part in this, even though I'm standing there and clapping myself. The Speaker of the House recognizes his mistake in applauding and ushering the whole House to applaud for a Nazi. Oh, and by the way, that's Russian propaganda that there are Nazis in Ukraine, and we are giving Nazis in Ukraine more weapons now. So thank you, goodbye. Let me play you this clip. This is from actually, before I continue, I just want to say one thing, because he's saying that, we apologize to Jewish communities. Why only Jewish communities? Did Canada not fight in World War II? Did the Canadians not land on D-Day in Normandy? Did the Canadians not fight in Caen? Do you not have tons of veterans and veterans' families in Canada? You do. You should apologize to them as well. You should apologize to anyone with a goddamn brain who can see what you're doing. You should apologize for arming Nazis in Ukraine now, not clapping for 98-year-old ones only, but on top of that, arming fighting age neo-Nazis and Nazis in Ukraine. You should apologize for that. It's not just, you're not just offending Jewish groups, you're offending anyone who has all five senses in working order, right? Let me play you this clip from Glenn Greenwald, and I'll read you the quote that he's about to mention. This is from the New York Times, right? And they're quoting this CIA Bellingcat. They say, quote, "What worries me in the Ukrainian context is that people in Ukraine who are in leadership positions, either they don't or they're not willing to acknowledge and understand how these Nazi symbols are viewed outside of Ukraine. I think Ukrainians need to increasingly realize that these images undermine support for the country." Yes, they should absolutely 150,000% undermine support for the country. Why should you support Nazis? Is that not a telltale sign, a red fucking flag that you should not support whatever is being done in this country? When Zelensky's posting pictures of the Ukrainian army on Telegram and then quickly deleting it a minute later because there are Nazi symbols in the background, when NATO are posting photos of Ukrainian women with wearing Nazis patches and symbols and then deleting them because people notice, yes, that should absolutely undermine support for the country. Yes, 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 yes. They're not worried about supporting Nazis. Oh no, they're worried about this being used for Russian propaganda purposes. It's not propaganda. It's 100% true, and you're just making the case for the Russians. The Russians don't even need to open their mouths. They can just have you speak, and they're just admitting it. It's an admission of guilt that they are supporting Nazis.
Is undermine support.
This is a clip from Glenn Greenwald from his show System Update, and he's talking about this exact quote as well, and he nails it. Listen to what he has to say.
Shouldn't they undermine support for the country? Shouldn't the fact that the leading fighting forces in Ukraine are filled with Nazis and people who have allegiance to Nazi ideology? Again, when I say Nazi ideology, you have to be very careful because in Western discourse, that phrase has been so overused. That Trump is a Nazi, that Trump is the new Hitler, that the Trump movement is fascist, that they're based on white supremacy, has been asserted over and over that those words have lost their meaning.
This is an excellent point. Right? In Austria and Germany, where the Nazis actually came to power, right? And it was one country, remember, after the Anschluss. That is Nazism. When you look at this 98-year-old who they're applauding, that's a Nazi. Now, is Trump deplorable because of his foreign policy, because of Mike Pompeo? Yes, he absolutely. But he doesn't qualify as a Nazi. But in America, they because America is geographically and mentally so far away from Europe, and especially, not just Europe, but especially Austria and Germany, it's like these terms, they just don't have any, they've been diluted. Anyone like is a Nazi, this and that. They're overused to the point that they have no meaning anymore. It's a good point.
You call someone a Nazi now, and it pretty much means they're a conservative or someone who dissents from establishment orthodoxy, whether from the right or the left. But it does actually have meaning. There are real Nazis. There is such a thing as Nazi ideology, and these are the real adherents to it. And the only problem, according to the New York Times and their partners at Bellingcat, is that it creates bad PR for Ukraine. It's important to keep good PR from Ukraine so we can keep weaponizing them and funding them. So far, the New York Times says, the imagery has not eroded international support for the war. Why not? Why hasn't this imagery of what the New York Times describes as regular or frequent invocation of Nazi ideology and Nazi symbols by the Ukrainian military, why hasn't that eroded international support for the war?
Exactly. It should. It absolutely should. Aside from the fact that, if look, if escalating with Russia and risking nuclear war with Russia is not good enough for you, is not good enough reason for you to want to stop arming Ukraine, well, then perhaps you would consider the fact that many, not all, but many, a considerable, sizable amount of the Ukrainian armed forces have Nazis and Nazi Banderite adherents in their ranks. Perhaps that should convince you. No, apparently it doesn't work in the West, and if you mention the truth, it's Russian propaganda. Okay, I see how this works. In any case, what happened in the Canadian Parliament is very disgusting, and you should know about it and tell people, because this is disgusting. I mean, it's not like they brought a skinhead and applauded him. No. They got you a vanilla, right? A vanilla original Nazi from the World War II, just to really drive the point home. And then the apology. Yeah, the apology is the best part, isn't it? Don't pay any attention to what we just did because it's Russian propaganda, I assure you. Thank you, gentlemen. Good night. When it comes to the Canadians applauding this disgusting Nazi, this Ukrainian Nazi, in Parliament, where are the groups like the ADL? Where are they? Now, again, don't get me wrong. You have other groups that have been, complaining about this in Canada, like that memorial I just showed you, for years now, since before this war in Ukraine erupted in 2022. right? But nevertheless, yesterday, the mainstream media, not a bloody word about this. Nothing. Now you'll find it, now. But in the last, 16 hours, there was nothing. There was nothing at all. And then only suddenly at the end, after people on Twitter have to do their work for them, then they spring into action and say, oh, okay, yeah, there was a Nazi there, turns out. You didn't take issue with that before? Even the way they reported on it, they didn't even know that this guy's a Nazi. Like, this is their level of journalism. This is how disgusting and shameful they are. And so, God, you should hear the commentary. Honestly, you should hear the commentary. I'm going to put in the video so you can hear how they were talking about it. Like, yeah, it was. There just happened to be a guy who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians in World War II. What do you mean you fought against the Russians? Anyone fighting against the Russians in World War II, again, alarm bells should be going off in your head. Alarm bells. Here, let me see if I can find that clip. This is from the AP. Okay, look at what they were saying. And the clip where they announced this was also from the AP, okay? But the image caption.
This is the island of Sindala, the first project.
Here, look at that. It says, so Ukrainian President Zelensky and Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recognized Hunka, who was in attendance and fought with the 1st Ukrainian Division in World War II before later immigrating to Canada. You mean a Nazi who ran away from Europe to Canada, just like those Ukrainians and Germans that emigrated to Argentina, huh? Like, this is their level of journalism. Look at that. It doesn't mention anywhere that this guy was in the 14th Division of the Waffen SS, that he's a Nazi, that Justin Trudeau and Volodymyr Zelensky are applauding an actual Nazi. Nothing. That's the caption from the Associated Press. That's their level of journalism. How deceitful and just low. And the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which really should just be called the Defamation League. They're a group that pretend to care about fighting anti-Semitism, but what they do is actually they go and attack anyone who criticizes Zionism, which is a disgusting, racist, Jewish supremacist political ideology from Europe that justifies colonizing Palestine and calling it Israel. The ADL just go and attack people who are critics of Zionism, who criticize Israel, and then try to paint them as anti-Semites. They are actually the real anti-Semites who go to Palestine and kill Semitic people, who kill Palestinians, and then take their land and pretend that they're natives. They did not say a word about this whole episode. I looked on their Twitter, not one thing, no statement about Canada's parliament applauding a Nazi. What happened to fighting anti-Semites? What happened to fighting people like that? No, nothing. Because it doesn't fit the propaganda, right? It's Russian propaganda if you say the truth, huh? But it's Western propaganda if you say nothing. It really is. Just look at that. Shameful. Look, shameful.